Howdy folks, Moose here. Brought you out in the field for a little hummingbird photography. Had a lot of questions with some of the photographs that I have posted. I thought I'd answer them, kind of like this short tutorial how I like to do hummingbird photography. And that's the first thing that's really key here. I'm going to show you my style, okay? And there's lots of different ways of doing this. This is just the way that I prefer, and I've been doing it for decades this way. Let me explain why. You probably will see some hummers coming into the shooting gallery as the filming is going. So I'm talking a little quietly, so I'm not disturbing them. And that's really the big part of the way I do it is I don't want to disturb them. As you know, I personally feel that no photograph is worth sacrificing the welfare of a subject. That includes hummingbirds. So I'm working as minimally as possible. I'm taking up as small a footprint as possible, letting them do their thing. I want to get their biology on camera. So a couple of things to think about. First and foremost, the wings. Some people like to freeze the wings, some don't. I'm one of the don't. When I experience a hummingbird, I can't see that wing. It's a blur. I want you to experience the same thing in my photograph. Freezing the wing just means that I have put a lot of light on that little bird and used a high shutter speed to freeze it. And to me, these flying jewels are anything but frozen in time. They're kind of a blur. I want that to come out as far as the wings. So that's partly the way I have things set up, is for that reason. But these little gorgeous little birds are really meant to reflect light. That's what their whole being is. In all their different shades and colors, those feathers are meant to reflect light. In order to reflect light, I've got to put light on them, because just waiting for ambient light to do its job, because angled incident equals angled reflection. And since we only have one sun, you have to be in the right spot to get light in one spot on the bird, and it's round. So that's why I use the rig I have. So I have two flashes here, and these two flashes, I've got the Quick Box Micro on here, because this is a big light area for that little bird. And I have two, and they're right next to the lens barrel, so when you look in the eye, you see just one highlight, because we only have one sun. So these are close, right on the lens axis, big, wraparound light, light up the gorget, which is the neck, and the sides of the hummingbirds very effectively. At the same time, because they're on this bracket, as I move the camera slightly to follow the hummingbirds, and following the hummingbirds is said with tongue in cheek because they're going, and I can't. But that's a whole nother video. These will sit there and track with that lens, so then I can sit there and work the hummingbirds as they come into the feeder. Now a little more technical stuff. Okay, so I have two SB5000s. They're running off the WR10, and you notice I'm shooting with the Z6. I'm using the Z6 for a couple reasons. One, the first thing is it has a almost quietless shutter. And I use my ears with hummingbirds as much as anything else. Each one of these hummingbirds, their wing beat makes a different noise. So like if a blue throat comes in or rivolias come in, they're like this big huey kind of wing beats. And then you got the Allens that kind of zzz, and you got the broadbills with the zzz, zzz, zzz. So I can use my ears to see who's coming in and going out of the feeders, because it's so much activity, my eyes aren't alone. So the quiet shutter really helps. That's something new to the arsenal this year that I'm really enjoying. The other thing about the Z is I can sit there and deal with my exposure without taking my eye from the viewfinder, which I've talked about in many videos when I talk about flash and the Z cameras. And flash is a big part of it. So I'm not shooting TTL. These flashes are on manual, okay, manual ratios. And what I'm doing is I can sit there and I have it set up in my menus. And I can push the button, and when I push it on, I can go into my group flash settings, and I can change my ratios of the flashes. And being old school, I have two groups, A and B. Right now, they're both set the same. And here's the thing. They might be set at this number now, but as the light changes, I'm constantly changing these ratios to keep up with the light falling on the scene. Now the scene has a couple of parts to it. The first part of the scene is where the hummers are flying. The second part is the background. Now, when you look at my photographs of the hummingbirds, the first thing I don't want you to see is flash. I don't want you to see flash. I want you to see the hummer. So if you look at the picture, you go, oh, he used flash. To me, I failed, okay? The next part, when I take these photographs, I don't want you to see is the feeder. So the feeder is just a way of getting the hummers into range, allow me to photograph them, and keep coming back and forth, back and forth. So let's talk a little bit about the setup. So the first thing I do is, you notice the feeders are on just plain old light stands with a Justin clamp with a twig holding the feeder up. Not really high tech, really simple. But what they are is completely maneuverable and movable during the shooting session. So if I'm shooting and I set up and there's a tree trunk in the background right now that's dark, not a problem. The sun hits it, well, I can then pick up that light stand, just move it a little bit, and now my background is no longer that tree trunk. It's not that big bright object. So that being able to be flexible with those feeders is very important. The next thing I do is when I come out here, the feeder is going to be set. I'm going to put the camera, I'm going to figure out about my minimum focusing distance. In other words, how close physically I can get to that feeder and the hummingbirds and still focus. Then move back a few inches, and that's where I'm going to put the tripod down. Then I'm going to put the chair down. And that's kind of important because these sessions can run into hours. And just when you think, it's not going to be a great morning, you don't know what's going to show up. And if you're bending over, your back getting tired, standing on your legs and your feet get tired, your photography starts going downhill. So a chair is important. Now, what I do is, you can see that there's two sides of that bird feeder. There's the right and left side. I call those alleyways. And what I'm going to do is, you look at this photograph, I'm going to sit there and just clip the very bottom of that bird feeder where I see the hummers coming in. As soon as I see them coming in, I then move the rig just a tad, either direction, depends what alley I'm at, and up, and then I shoot and photograph them. So you can see in the series how he comes in, he's pausing for a second, then he goes in and actually feeds. Don't want that feeder shot, I want those other shots. More importantly, I want the interaction as well. Now when it comes to the rest of the equation, okay, shutter speed. That bird body is moving a little bit, the wings are moving a lot, okay. My flashes are here basically to bring out the color in those hummingbirds, and I'm going to use shutter speed to freeze the body, not the wing. And this is the one case where I'm actually going to raise my ISO, something I don't like doing. And I work in one-stop increments. Vast majority of the time I'm at 800 ISO. But if I were to sit there and let's say I start out like what we've been doing at 5:30 in the morning, it's dark out, so I might be at 3200 ISO. If I need to go from 3200 then to 1600 as the sun starts coming up, I'm going to sit there and I can, that one stock increment, I can go into my flash ratios. And if I'm like at 1/32, I can go to 1/16 and I'm golden. So I'm doing everything in one stop increments. It makes the math easier. But the flash is for not freezing wings, is for color. Using shutter speed just to slow down the motion of the body. My general rule of thumb is I want about 1/125th to freeze that body. The feeder is strictly to bring the birds in. Alleyway is where I'm going to shoot. Technology is going to let me sit there and concentrate. So hopefully this little video gives you an idea of my basic humming rig. It's what I've been using for a long time. The little flash has been the same the whole time, but everything else keeps evolving each and every year as new technology comes out. So hopefully this helps you. Oh yeah, one other thing. You might be noticing the big lens. That's not required. That's my own personal preference. If you have a really habituated little Hummer, you could do this with a 7200 or a 300 millimeter lens. So the lens is the least specific part of this whole rig. The lighting, the Hummers, they're the essential part. Hope it helps. Look forward to seeing you out there and seeing your Hummer photographs posted real soon.